Now, I was going to start with your with the clip that you shared on Twitter yesterday, which is going to be the subject of the discussion here, where you had on Ed Martin, who is now in day 4. What's his official title, Ed?
He's President Trump's pardon attorney. Plus, he is also the person who's running the weaponization group over at the DOJ.
Okay, I mean, it's
Director,
fantastic. He was the one that was supposed to be the, do I want to say,
the
not AG,
assistant U.S. attorney to
to
D.C.
the district. That's right. And then he got yeeted through some politicking because he had been on podcasts of people who they claim are white, whatever, white nationalists, and he got besmirched and defamed, and then didn't pass the. They didn't even put it to a vote.
They didn't even put it to a vote, and it's because we have rhinos in the Senate who they're really trying their best when it comes to these controversial picks that President Trump wants to gain political capital. So they're looking to extract as much as they can from the president. And President Trump is coming out flat out saying, I don't have time to jump on the calls with these senators. I'm busy. I've got deals to push through, these tariffs, these trade wars that we're trying to settle off with. So unfortunately, he didn't have time to do that. But I actually think it's a much more beneficial role that he's in now, because he's going to be investigating a lot of the people that don't even want him to be investigating them in the first place.
Well, it was the argument with Matt Gaetz where they said, okay, when Matt got 86th in the political sense, in the proper sense, when they torpedoed his campaign or quest to be AG, and I was like, okay, great. He can operate in the backdrop without having to worry about Senate approval, and he can even be more useful there. You know, what he's doing in the interim, I think, is still very, very useful. But Ed Martin, set aside any vote, can be even more useful without having to go through that political process. And so he is now the pardon attorney. So he's looking over cases for pardons that are continuously submitted to the president throughout the presidency.
Yeah, that's his role, to bring these to his attention, the president's attention. And I think it's important because, a lot of us thought after J6 that all the political prisoners were freed, but there's plenty of them that haven't been freed. And like you alluded to before we started, those who were involved allegedly in the Governor Whitmer kidnapping plot, which many people who have actually studied the case would argue that the federal government played a much larger role in that case than these actual individuals who were arrested. So far, there are 3 who were charged in a state level. They're sitting in state prison. And the 2 who are in federal prison, they stand a chance of getting pardoned by President Trump. So that's what we're advocating for now.
It is. I'm going to see if I can pull up an article. I remember it from I want to see the Beast or something, where they were talking about how much involvement becomes entrapment in the context of, not these investigations, but these plots. And I covered it extensively at the time. It was. I think Barnes and I were among the earlier ones to look crazy and say this looks more like entrapment than bona fide kidnapping, where you're dealing with people who may or may not be, have their mental faculties all there, who didn't have the means, who didn't have the resources, were given credit cards to buy weapons, were given training by the FBI agents. Do you want to remind refresh everybody's memory as to the level of FBI involvement that could arguably be said to be entrapment and actually led to the acquittal of 2 of them?
Yeah, well, Christina Urso was the one who was really behind all of this, and I was following her reporting, and she's done an incredible job. She's really been hyper-focused on this case because she saw all of this from a mile away and knew it was entrapment from the very beginning. She's actually working on a documentary on this, and it should hopefully be out soon. But just digging through, the FBI, through several different agents, I should say, were more involved in orchestrating this entire kidnapping plot than these actual men were. They were the ones initiating a lot of this, and they were the ones instructing these men on what to do. And many would argue that on the left that this wasn't entrapment, but I'd argue the opposite, right? Because if these men didn't have these FBI employees, people who were on the FBI's payroll, would they have even gotten to this point of being able to make a lot of these questionable purchases or orchestrating the events that took place? And so I think many would probably say no if you actually honestly heard the case getting argued out in front of a fair jury. We've seen that time and time play out, the state stepping in, though, and prosecuting those 3 men. But the ones that we're focused on, the ones who we could actually save right now, is Adam Fox and Barry Croft Jr. They both were found guilty in August of 2022 for the conspiracy of kidnapping and conspiracy to use a weapon for mass destruction in connection to that alleged plot.
Refresh my memory. Were they convicted on the second time around, or were they convicted on the first trial?
I believe these 2 men were convicted the second time around.
Yeah, because I think there was
around the jury couldn't reach a verdict.
So they retried them. A couple, I forget their names, did get acquitted after having raised the entrapment argument. Yeah. These guys got convicted on their second time around. They're in federal custody because it was federal charges. Almost better because the state charges can't be pardoned, but it can be investigated by Harmeet Dillon. So what is the state of their existence right now? I presume, I don't know if there's any appeals that they're going through, but they're currently being held up or detained on the federal conviction. And then the question becomes whether or not they're worthy of a pardon for this, what many believe is a political persecution or outright entrapment.
Yeah, so one of the men were sentenced to 19 and a half years in prison, and the other is serving a 16-year prison sentence. Christina Urso is the one who I've been going to because she communicates with these men. The prison conditions, from what I understand, are horrible. They're actually being held in one of the most horrific prisons in the United States, from my understanding. She's done a deep dive into all of this, so she'd probably be better versed as to what their current frame, their mindset is in all of this, because she communicates with them regularly. In regards to trying to put this on people's radar, though, because I feel like most people don't remember that this even happened, because like you said, the J6 thing kind of just took
eclipsed it. Because I remember we were covering I'm trying to find the article, Encryptus, if you can find the article, I forget where it was, but they were talking about like, get used to a lot more involvement of FBI in these types of cases, where we were saying like there were more FBI agents, confidential human sources, assets involved in this than there were defendants. And the argument was always, but for the FBI's involvement, would these men have even done anything in the first place? And from the evidence, I remember the FBI agents or CHSs were the ones driving the defendants to the property to do drive-bys. They were the one training them for weapons, suggesting explosives, giving them prepaid credit cards. The CHSs, at least one of them, from my memory, was paid what, $55,000-$60,000 a year for his work as a confidential human source. And the question was, how is this not entrapment, even if these people were, what's the word I'm looking for? Questionable, easy targets to begin with. How is this not entrapment? And now I forgot what you said before that.
Well, that's a great question though regarding entrapment. Constantly I've got people who are reading through a lot of these cases that get brought up. Like there was a recent one about an Islamic terror plot that was foiled by the FBI, and so my friend, like before I posted it, she's so sweet. She's like, "Hold on, let me read through it all to make sure it's not entrapment before you post about it, because I bet you the FBI knew about this and might have had some say in it." And she did through it. She didn't find any entrapment there, but she's found entrapment in several different other cases, and so that's why it's so important to like wait before you get the press release on a lot of these cases and just don't read it at surface value, because we start going through all of it, like you just said, like they're openly admitting to participating in bringing these men to do what they were forced to do. I mean, almost. A lot of people, now I have not spoken to any of these men, but a lot of these people would tell me, Christina specifically, that these men wouldn't have participated in any of this if the FBI didn't play that significant role in it. And so I think that's really critical in all of it. And it's enraging that this even happened in the first place. Our biggest fight is to get these two men out. I think that's the easiest fight we have with President Trump, to have him, pay attention to all of this, because that would be an easy win for him. But then we also have those three who are being held right now in state prison. And you know what? Honestly, Governor Whitmer really wants to work with President Trump. We've seen her twice so far, once in the White House and one at a press conference, standing behind the president. If she wants to work with this White House, I think President Trump should hold her feet to the fire a little bit and force her to release her political prisoners, because ultimately, yes, she has say over what the AG is doing, and she could actually pardon them and free these three men. She knows damn well that this was not something that was going to actually take place. I always joke and say, why did the FBI want to kidnap Governor Whitmer so badly that they did all of this? But the reality of it is that she knew that this was a fake plot, and so the game's over. We need to free all of these men. All five of these men need to be released from prison right now.
I found the article. It was BuzzFeed, so it's got to be good. Is it share screen? Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping here. This was the article I remember at the time, where BuzzFeed News, and it was watching the Watchmen. You got to go to the section where they describe the entrapment. Mm-hmm. Here we go. Attorneys for all but one of the defendants declined invitations to comment, yada, yada. To date, one defendant has formally accused the government of entrapment, arguing that the FBI assembled the key plotters, encouraged the group's anti-government feelings, and even gave its members military-style training. Additional defendants have said they plan to make similar claims. It succeeded on them, but people don't really necessarily even remember or fully appreciate the level of the entrapment, that it was the agents or CHSs doing the training, giving them money to buy the weapons, because these guys... One of the guys was living in the basement of a vacuum shop who had to go and wash himself at a nearby restaurant. They didn't have the means. They didn't really have arguably the intent. And but for the involvement of the FBI, this would have never gone anywhere. And then they retried the two and convicted them. But you see, like the question is this: easy political win for Trump. I don't see in any realm of the universe, and I don't go by the reaction of the propagandist media. I don't see any realm of the universe where this is politically easy to pass over, especially given that there are a bunch of rhinos who are still traumatized from January 6th. Even, conservatives who say that Jan 6 was the worst thing ever, which is why they didn't want Ed Martin in. So I don't even know how Trump could sell this to conservatives.
Yeah, I mean, everyone who was involved in this case, I feel like had some level of corruption. I know you just cited a couple of key ones. I had to pull this one up too because I remembered the details. This is Urso who flagged this for me as well. There was an FBI agent on this task as well, on this assignment. Richard Trask is his name. Now, you might recall he was the one who was arrested and charged with domestic violence for assaulting his wife after the two came back from a swingers
Yep.
party.
Oh, God, I forgot about that.
And it was so. I was like,
what is it always?
wow.
The lead agents are always corrupt criminals. Isn't it the weirdest thing? I'm
Yeah.
thinking of James Comey right now, but I am.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't be too far off on that one. But yeah, he was fired by the FBI after the incident. But again, it's complete insanity to me. It just highlights the fact that these people are probably more criminals than the actual ones who are sitting right now in prison cells. So I think that's kind of the pitch here, that all of these individuals who had their hand in this were corrupt people themselves. There's no way that you should be doing this to American people. I gotta be honest with you, there's a lot of people who are easy to kind of manipulate a little bit. And I can only imagine with somebody with maybe a learning disability or maybe autistic to some degree, if you find them on the internet, you tell them what to do, you push them a little bit more to do something, they might actually do it. And that's the reason why, number one, so many people are when we see like mass shootings, for an example, I know a lot of people immediately, obviously our hearts are with the victims, but our first mind goes to, well, we're going to hear that line. The FBI say they were on our radar, because a lot of these times the FBI misses it. And whether or not that's intentional, that's debatable. But it's hard to believe that these well-funded agencies are unable to catch on to these terrorists before they strike. And then they go immediately after. Democrats push their left-leaning agenda like hours after these incidents take place. So I don't know. I just think all of this is so corrupt. And why not just get rid of it?
There is no question. It was actually Encryptus just found this one. That was the other one that I was thinking of from Vice, which said the line between FBI stings and entrapments has not blurred. It's gone. This was way back in the day.
That's Vice.
Yeah, it was 2014. It was back before everybody tolerated entrapment because of its political opportunism. But the 9/11 one, or no, it was a terrorist related one where the judge overturned it. And I remember it was a Muslim guy where they said this level of entrapment is straight out of a CBS movie, or like the judge said this is like a Hollywood level entrapment in terms of finding a target and using them. And when you say, yeah, they're vulnerable, they're useful, vulnerable people, I draw a certain analogy between the FBI exploiting those vulnerable individuals to other movements exploiting other vulnerable minors for the purposes of brainwashing them into doing certain things. And everybody knows where I'm going with this. But okay, well, so the question is, this is a push now to have the two men at the federal level pardoned. And Ed Martin was on your show and he said, it's on my desk and I'm going to look at it.
Yeah, so he's going to be looking at this, what I'm excited for, because I don't know if anyone's actually given this a good look. Now, Ed Martin, he is now officially 6 days into his new role, so he's got a lot of catching up to do, and I'm sure it's going to take him a lot of time. But this is important because these two men are sitting right now in one of the filthiest prisons in the country, and it just shouldn't be the case. So I have a lot of faith in Ed Martin because he understands it. I mean, he even equated it to the J6ers. He said, I think that they were also wrong, just like our J6ers were as well. So I think that this is a priority for him. And, I've had the pleasure of meeting Ed Martin. I met him when I was actually going in the Rumble studio in Washington, D.C. I was coming out, he was coming in, and we were swapping places. And very nice man. And I kept in touch with him. I exchanged numbers with him when he didn't get his role, what I think he should have received over in the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office. I was excited to hear what he was going to do. So I'm hopeful that this is going to be a top priority for him. He said it was, and I take him at his word because he has not wronged any of us yet.